Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Joe Kwan of Connection Counselor. Joe, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Gresh, I'm so excited to be here and meet you and participate in your wonderful program.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say my job is to hold up the microphone and you do the awesome work. So I appreciate you, hopping on the show. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Joe so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And as the connection counselor, Joe teaches busy professionals how to unlock the 12 super personal skills that elevate your career. He's the author of the groundbreaking Unlock Your Leadership series, including Unlock Your Executive Presence, which finally wrestles to the ground this elusive ability. An acclaimed coach and keynote speaker with over 20 years of experience in corporate America, his goal is to help you unlock the best version of yourself. Joe also hosts the Big Lie and Why It Works podcast, and when he is not teaching, loves to spend time training in Aikido. Joe holds a BA in psychology from the University of Miami, a JD from Georgetown University, Hoya Saxa, and lives in New Jersey with his family. Joe, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Ready to go. Just want to mention undergrad UVA, so University of
Okay.
Virginia. Okay, yeah.
Okay, and the JD from
Georgetown.
Georgetown, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll
Thank you.
definitely take that. I'll make sure I get that in again because that's important.
No
and
worries.
to kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit here, a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through your CEO story? We'll let you get started with all the awesome things you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole life, I've just loved talking to people. Coaching is maybe too glamorous of a word. Just exchanging ideas, being a sounding board. So I've been doing that my whole career just because that's kind of who I am, just how what you do is, Gresh is part of who you are. And one day I'm on the phone with, I hope she doesn't mind I use her name, Paula Porto, former colleague of mine from Argentina. So I met her on a business trip. We work for the same company. And I guess I must have made a good impression on her. We stayed in touch over the years. She's a seasoned executive. And several years later, we were both at different companies. I get an email from her and she says, Joe, I really want to invest in myself this year and I want to hire a personal coach and I'm willing to pay for it. Would you be my personal coach? And Gresh, my mind just it like exploded. I was like, wait, I can get paid for what I was already doing for free. And the reason why that's my origin story was I didn't truly appreciate the value of those conversations, of those insights. And I was going to do it anyway, whether I was getting paid or not, because that's who I am. But then I started thinking, wait a second, there is a business, there is a value that people will gladly exchange, whatever compensation happens to be. It doesn't have to be money necessarily, for the insights and the coaching I receive. And that's kind of how the Connection Counselor was born.
Nice. I absolutely love that. It's so interesting. I always feel like when you're in your zone of genius, often we forget those gifts that we have, and we sometimes don't appreciate it as much because it comes so naturally, and it's not anything you have to work at. And it's often other people that often will say, "Hey, you should get paid for that," or "Hey, I will buy your service." That kind of opens up the floodgates to all the awesome things that we can do.
Well, here's the funny thing, Gresh, that now that you say that, the time it actually became a business was not that first one, right?
Mm,
It became a business when I was having another conversation with a former boss of mine. And
mhm.
we were just talking about something that she was struggling with at work. And then at the end of the conversation, she says to me, hey, Joe, you're really good at this. You're better at this than I am. Now, I can't teach her anything about the law. We're lawyers by training.
Mhm.
But I could teach her about all those sort of connection principles. And here was the key, Gresh. I stopped and I said to myself, hey, I'm not going to say her name, so-and-so. It's funny you mentioned that. I just started a side business coaching. Would you mind if I send you a proposal? Look it over. And if you want, this way we can talk on a regular basis. I can give you more time and attention. And what did she say? She said, of course. And she became my second client. That's
Mhm.
that kind of recognition that, like, it's not just a favor. It's not just something I do with friends. It's a viable business. That was the key game changer for me.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that because it actually makes me go back, to working with clients, and of course you do things. Sometimes you get paid for it, but it's really sometimes a person that doesn't really know you or isn't as warm of a connection that truly validates you and what it
Hmm.
is that you do that really puts that stamp on. So I love that clarification.
Thanks, Crash.
No worries. And so I know we touched on it a little bit when I read your bio. You did as well too. Could you take us through a little bit more on how you work with clients and what exactly that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So my philosophy seems like too grandiose of a word, but my approach is I believe that everyone has tremendous value right now already, right? You were born, already you had that value. What happens is it often gets buried underneath cultural norms, expectations of our parents, of our bosses, of our society, fear, right? Fear of being great, of taking risks. So the work that I do doesn't seek to change you in a way to change you into a new person. I've started calling myself a leadership transformation coach.
Mhm.
All it does is help you unlock what was already there, but was kind of like locked inside.
Mhm.
So it's kind of unleashing, beast mode.
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Engage beast
for,
mode. I love
yeah,
that.
for my clients, and that has been so fulfilling for me, right? So it's like imagine like you see like a tiger and they're caged, and the tiger's like
Mhm.
all docile. They don't know they're a tiger, or to use what's that movie? You're a bear with these
Yeah.
claws and these hands. I mean that's not
Right.
a great example, but you know what I mean. Like people don't
Yes.
recognize how powerful they are,
Hmm.
just to help them understand that, and that's kind of the process. That's what I do for people.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It was reminding me of this image that I saw where it was I feel like it was a horse that was attached to one of those like lawn chairs, and it had a rope around it, and the horse didn't feel like it could move because I guess it had been conditioned. All those things happened where the horse thought that it couldn't move this small, flimsy lawn chair. But like you said, about the lion kind of being able to break out of the chain, so to speak, maybe, and being able to kind of be their best self and walk in their zone of genius. So many times external things and I guess even things that happen, within our lives can kind of reduce us from that ability to really be our best selves and unlock that greatness.
Yeah, and I love how you say zone of genius. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's a term you came up with, but
I
that
wish it
really
was.
that really resonates. Where did you hear that from?
It
That's
was
great.
from, and I'm losing the book leap of. It's from Gay Hendricks. That's the name of the
Oh, okay. Oh
author.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I've heard. Yeah, yeah, I've heard about
yes,
that. Yeah.
it's a really phenomenal book, and I often say zone of genius. Some people say zone of brilliance, but I think
Yeah.
being able to kind of find that, and I love because like we kind of talked about so many times we're looking externally for it when in reality sometimes we have seeds of it already within us and things that we've done sometimes we just ignore it, and I love that you're able to help people find that and bring it
Well,
out.
for me, it's all about alignment,
Hmm.
right? Are you aligned with what your I call them super personal skills, right? Are you
Hmm.
aligned with the power that you already have, or are you busy trying to be something else, which you can be very good at? You can be very good at impersonating, but you're never going to be good at being someone else as you will be at being who you're meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I do say sometimes if you we are always running somebody else's race, but if you run your own race you cannot lose, and we're always kind of running somebody else's race, which sometimes gets us in trouble. So let me ask you this. I wanted to ask you for what I call your secret sauce, and this could be
Mhm.
for you personally or your business or a combination of both, but is it that ability to kind of see that within individuals and bring that out? Do you feel like that's part of your secret sauce?
Yeah, that definitely is. There's probably one other thing that I would mention, and it's my ability to focus and communicate the hidden principles behind why things work. So let me use an example that
Hmm.
that is very seems to get a good response. Charisma, right?
Hmm.
You're very charismatic. Lots of people would love to have your charisma. If they asked you how you're charismatic, I'm guessing you would have difficulty explaining exactly what it is. You're like, I'm Gresh, or I'm
Right.
friendly, or I'm myself. Like, that's not really helpful
Yeah, I just
to,
like people.
yeah, you like people. Well, I like people too, but no one likes me, right? Like, so, so there's a challenge here. And what happens is, you not knowing is normal, right? Like
Hmm.
Roger Federer, you ask him how he hits his serve,
Hmm.
he can't break it down. He's forgotten more about hitting a serve than we'll ever learn, right? But that doesn't help anyone get his serve or become better. So
Mhm.
where I come in is I break down those hidden principles, and charisma is a good example. If you look at all the information that's out there about charisma,
Mhm.
they'll describe traits that charismatic people will have, or they'll give you like a list. And they'll say stuff like posture, eye contact, be yourself. Well, you can do all of those things in isolation, but they will not generate charisma. So what I've done is kind of break it down. Totally coincidentally, this happened that I figured this out. But once I kind of figured that out, it was super powerful. So let me put you on the spot, Gresh, because
Okay.
I love podcasting myself.
There you go.
What would you say generates charisma?
Um, and I'm gonna be very general, just like you said before. What's coming to me now is gonna say the word connection. So I think it's the ability to be able to kind of have two ears, one mouth for a reason, to really be able to listen, engage, have eye contact, and all those things. But really, ultimately, those build up into having and creating that connection.
So what you explained is actually one of the better answers I've heard.
Yes.
You're 90% there. You're just
Hey, that's an
missing,
A in my book.
that's an A. You're missing that 10%, right?
All
On a
right.
graded curve, it's definitely an A plus.
There we go. Now I gotta hear the
So
10%.
here's the definition. All
Okay.
right. And once you hear this, and once your listeners hear this, you will not be able to unsee this. You will see that this is what's actually going when you're charismatic and when you see other people who you wish you were charismatic. Charisma is the ability to sense and ultimately deliver
Mm,
exactly what is needed from an emotional perspective
mm,
in a given moment. That's charisma. When you can give the person who's in front of you, when you can help them go where they need to go emotionally, maybe they're sad, they need to be happy. Maybe they're, a little bit, too pumped up and they need to calm down, right? When you can give them exactly what they need, people want to be around you. They want more of that, right? And that's what charisma is.
I absolutely love that definition. And because I think you're absolutely, we were saying 10%, I think you're being very kind because you're on the show. I feel like that's another like 30, 40, 50% because a lot of times we forget that human aspect. And I think that speaks directly to that, of that ability to not just make a connection, but make that emotional connection, because a lot of what we do, what manifests within us are those emotions, and really to be able to be in tune with that, but also deliver that is something extremely powerful. So I love that.
If you and I went to a party,
Hmm.
right? And we walked in and the party was dead, and you said, "Hey, Joe, this party's dead." You've only met half of the definition. You've
Hmm.
sensed what's needed, but have you helped anyone have a good time?
Right.
No. And the other key is I don't care so much what skills you have, right?
Hmm.
You could be a good conversationalist, you could be a DJ, you could be good at dancing, right? Like it's the skill itself is not important. What's important is the thing that you bring to the party gets everyone excited and having a good time. And it could be more than one thing, right? So
Right.
that's the other thing. People always think like, oh, I got to be a good public speaker, or I got to dress better, or I got to be better looking to be charisma. No, no, no. It's just what that particular person or environment needs at that specific moment. If you can pull it out of the rabbit hat, whatever that
Hmm.
happens to be,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden people are like, oh, who's this guy or who's this gal? Like, I want more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it speaks to, being able to be obviously in tune to who you are, but also in tune to the environment around you, the people around you, which really
Exactly.
takes everything to another level. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I
Sure.
wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Yeah. So it's funny that you asked that because I have my full-time job.
Hmm.
So and then I'm doing a lot of similar things to like what you do on the side. So a lot of times people
Hmm.
ask me like, how did you write those books and your podcasting? Like, how do you do that? The number one thing is not a hack. The number one thing is just because I love doing it so much. You and I have so much fun doing what we're doing. You gotta like
Right.
almost pay us to stop.
Right.
Uh, but if we're talking like productivity hack, I have a good one for you. Uh, it's never finish until you finish.
Mm,
Okay. So let's say you have 10 chapters to write in a book. Normally, you would write the first chapter, you would put it down, and gosh, how hard is it to start that second chapter, right? It's
mm,
really hard because you have this sense of completion. So, what I always do is once I get close to finishing the first chapter, it could be anything, right? It could be a podcast, could be anything you prepare, I always, even if it's only like the first word of the second chapter, I always do a little bit more. If I'm doing marketing and I have a list of 100 people that I want to email or call, I never stop at 10. I stop at 9 or I stop at 11. Right? I always, because the human brain craves completion, and once we get completion, we're like, I'm done. But if you leave it incomplete, your mind is like, Gresh, you got more to do. You got more to do.
Yeah.
And then that gets you back into the flow. And it's amazing how you can sort of, it is a hack. You trick yourself into be more industrious than you otherwise would be.
Yeah, but I love because it kind of speaks to what we kind of talked about before, kind of knowledge of self and being aware of that and aware of, human psychology as you talked about and understanding. I've heard a lot in the gym where you do one more rep. So you don't
Yes.
just, you don't just do, the 9 reps that you set or the 10 reps that you set out to do. You do 11 because you're always kind of pushing yourself to continue to kind of go forward. And I think that, as you said, when you understand yourself as a human, understand what it feels to experience that completion, you can begin to quote unquote hack yourself and be able to see how you can go to another level just by taking sometimes just one extra rep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great metaphor for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
All right. Well, we've touched upon this a little bit before, but I'll put a finer point on it. And I can't claim credit for this one. I originally heard of it from a quote by a Scottish chess champion in a book that I was reading. His name is I think his name is like Jonathan Rouse, and he's like a Scottish chess grandmaster. And what he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, is if you want to be a chess champion, a chess grandmaster, you will never succeed. You have to choose to be a grandmaster. You're not yet, right? Obviously, you haven't gotten there yet.
Mhm.
But when you choose that as your identity, then everything you do, every action, every decision is informed by your identity. Whereas when you just say you want to do something, all you see are the gaps and the things that you don't have yet, right? Because people often think that our choices make who we are. And our choices are important, right? Because they show who we are. But really, we do the things because we've already decided who we are, and all our actions flow from that, right? So to me, that's a very powerful principle. When you chose to be a podcaster, when you chose to, and then you're off to the races, and every call you took, every conversation you had probably nudged and informed what you did versus, you know what? This is kind of a hobby of mine. You never would have had the
Mhm.
success you had, Gresh, if you hadn't chosen that identity for yourself from the get-go.
Mm, that's so powerful, and it kind of speaks to, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong. I hear so many times that when people want to be a millionaire, whatever their goal might be, they choose to become that. They start to emulate that. They start to do the things before they sometimes have that in the bank, and that's what creates that momentum towards that. Rather than saying, "Oh, I want to be, and I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to get there," where it kind of sounds like an entirely different type of energy.
Yeah, and one other thing I would add to that, what you say is exactly right. You know, you're choosing the thing that almost in a way has already been chosen for you,
Mm,
right? Like we were talking about that before, the closer you can get to aligning what you're meant to do and who you are, the more powerful you are. So typically it's not about a particular position or an amount of money. It's more like what is your role that
mm,
you're supposed to serve in life, and yours may be to bring like a certain amount of kind of energy and wisdom and to people who are in your audience. Like that's how you serve, right? And then
mhm.
for me it's something else, but we're each respectively doing kind of what we're meant to do, and we didn't make it up. No one told it to us. It was already inside us in a way. We just had to discover it.
Yeah, we had to unleash it, and they definitely speak into the zone of genius. And I remember the book now. It's The Big Leap. That's the name of the book. Phenomenal read, and that zone of
Yeah.
genius and being able to kind of tap into that really takes everything to another level. So I love that kind of add on and clarifying that as well too, so that we understand what exactly that looks like and how it manifests itself. Sometimes in money in ways and achievements and titles, but really doing what you're called to do is really how you really unleash that. So absolutely love that, Joe. And so now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Joe, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, to me, it's pretty simple and straightforward. I'm in charge of serving others, right? And each organization has a different purpose in terms of how they serve, but the organization only exists to serve others, right? Without serving others, there's no reason for the organization, and it won't be sustainable. And my specific service that I provide is unlocking people's full potential by helping them understand better how to connect to themselves. And we've talked about this, right? Like your identity, what you're meant to do, the alignment, and also how to connect to others. So that's the charisma, the executive presence, and the other things that I sort of teach. And when you have those two, when you understand, like, let me connect to the best version of myself, and let me understand how to connect that and communicate that and deliver that best to other people,
Mm.
then I'm not going to say you're going to become a CEO, but what I am going to say is you will fulfill your greatest potential, whether it means you go here halfway or way above. That's not important. Wherever you were meant to go, you have a better chance of getting there by doing that than by not being connected and living someone else's life, or thinking you're so great, but you can't connect to anyone else, so no one knows who you are.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and I love that kind of like that. I guess two parts of the coin, so to speak, because I think so many times if you have one accomplished, then you think that's it. But in reality, you need to really understand the most. So you might understand these are the gifts that I have, these are the things or reason that I'm put on this earth, so to speak, and you might have that figured out, but you have no way of knowing how exactly you can impart that and be of service, whether that be a CEO or whatever titles we might have, or you might know how to do that, but you have no idea kind of like what your gift is. So you're just kind of meandering through doing a bunch of different things. And I love how both of those, like a coin, I said, it really completes the coin when you understand both of those, and you really get to have an impact when you're dialed into both of those, no matter what your title or how exactly that manifests itself in the world.
Yeah. One thing I always say is anything that needs to be accomplished with more than one person, it will not happen without connection,
Mm,
right? You have to be connected to the other person if you want to go more than solo. If you're going to be solo, that's great. You can do a great thing by yourself. But if you want to engage other people and build something that's bigger than yourself, it has to connect to other people, whether they're customers, coworkers, partners, suppliers, doesn't matter. There has to be that connection.
yeah, absolutely, and I think that is definitely evident in the world, that we're living in now, and trying to be able to manifest that connection in so many different ways. But really, I think that's what we all crave. That's what we want, is that ability to be appreciated, to have that connection, that human and emotional connection that we kind of spoke to earlier. So, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course how best we can get a hold of you, find out about your book and all the awesome things and podcasts that you have as well too.
Sure, absolutely. So I have two podcasts. One is called Why It Works, and it explores hidden principles about why things work. And it could be any topic. I've done stuff that's kind of obvious, like sales, performance management. I've done stuff that's not obvious, like heartbreak and anger. My other podcast is called The Big Lie. And it's basically, you'll like this, Gresh. What is the lie that you've believed for so long? And then when you realized it was a lie, everything changed, right?
Mm,
So that's my newest podcast, and then I have a guest coming up. She's a coworker that I worked with, and then we may do something on Black Lives Matter, which I'm very
mm.
excited about. And then in terms of my books, you can find them on Amazon. It's the Unlock Your series. You can just Google, my name, Joseph Kwan, unlock your charisma, unlock your executive presence. And the easiest way to get in touch with me and learn more about what I do is just my website, www.connectioncounselor.com. And from there, you can get to all my, various socials, LinkedIn, Twitter. They'll be on there, or email me. And yeah, would love to hear from your listeners and just continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I truly appreciate that. We will have the links and information in the show notes for your books, podcasts, and everything as well too, so that it's super easy to be able to find that. And I love that podcast. You're absolutely right. Hit the nail on the head. I love that kind of concept, because I think so many times we forget that we can sometimes create our reality, and that lie that we tell ourselves that may not actually be true might be holding us back, and it might not allow us to reach our full potential. So I love that you're having conversation, obviously on the podcast, but in so many different ways around that, and how we can, unleash our best selves, and really take things to another level. So Joe, truly appreciate you again, my friend. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.